I've also noticed that companies and organizations are looking more for leaders who can manage in a hybrid,
Right.
which is very different than managing when the person is next to you. I mean, how do you treat the person who's in the office compared to the person who's in the Rocky Mountains in a cabin working remotely, so that they're both given the opportunity and getting the feedback and the things that they need to grow? And so leadership is really changed in that way, that people are thinking about that. And I also think the other thing we're seeing is, and I think it's both the pandemic and the generational things, that
Yes.
generations coming up, is not everyone wants to work like we used to work. And that's really a game changer. And how do managers and leaders react to people who may be brilliant and effective and engaged, but they work a little differently?
It's really been a seismic shift, hasn't it?
It's been huge, and I think we're seeing a little bit of people trying to pull it back right now, and I'm
Yeah,
seeing that in the
yeah,
market.
right.
But I think some of it is here to stay. But it does also impact people. You have to be a really good manager and leader if you are onboarding someone so that they get part of the corporate culture, as well as somebody who is engaged in training people. Because if someone's out of sight, you know, like we were saying, there's some people who were like me. If I was out of sight way back when I was my ostrich stage, I could easily get ignored by my manager and have nothing going on and not get the appropriate training. And I'm also hearing from the more junior professionals that they find it a little bit awkward to call and stuff. So you really need a very proactive manager who's very intuitive and isn't multitasking. Because when you multitask, you're not really listening to the person on the Zoom or the phone call. So it's really amping up those skills. You can get something done, you know, using a whip and this and that.
Sugar, vinegar.
And everything else, and you're going to get a result. But if you know, there are better ways to do it where people aren't going to hate you in the company at the end. And that's what you want, because you want high performers to stay, you want high performers to feel connected to an organization and a manager. I mean, there's a saying that people leave managers.
Right.
Not jobs.
Not the job.
From my people who are in the C-suite that I work with to the people who are lower, really what they're trying to do is make their organizations more successful and to, you know, bring shareholder value. But they're also looking at it that to be successful, you need to have an educated, engaged, and empowered workforce. And so the best thought leadership comes from the people on the ground, and they appreciate those skills, that thought leadership that their teams give them. And by doing that, they get their teams more engaged and get better thought leadership and better ideas and more innovation and creativity. So it really is, they're listening. It's not a top-down mentality.
As it used to be, right?
As it used to be, and you would just sort of hierarchical, and you do what you're told, and you don't think, and someone comes in the room, and the head person at the table, usually a man back then, you know, decrees what you're going to do. And meanwhile, the people who really are down in the trenches know that it's not going to work for X, Y, and Z.
Right.
So really what they've done is reverse that model, and it's led to more, I think, effective and creative solutions for organizations going forward. Then you need to think about, okay, perception may be a little bit reality. What do I need to tweak? How do I want to approach this? And then you want to go back in and ask the person if you're making progress. Because, you know, that's important too, because they know then that you took it seriously.
Employee engagement also very important, right? Tell us why.
I mean, if I leave an organization tomorrow, and I've had a nice impact, but if I leave an organization with a fabulous pipeline of talent behind me, that organization is stronger for me being there. And besides that, I can't, as a leader, I can't do everything.
Right.
Now, you know, I work with people with thousands of people in their organizations. They can't do it all. So you have to be good at delegating and inspiring and engaging people to do more than they thought was possible. And you want people to stay. It's expensive to replace people, both from institutional knowledge, but also just, you know, hard costs. So employee engagement is real, it matters, and the bosses and the managers and the leaders that get it have much more effective teams that make a great impact on the organization. I wrote an article or a blog, I don't know, a year or so ago, on that listening is the most critical skill you can have as a leader. It's the foundation. And I learned this from a leader who didn't listen. I found he would walk into a room, and if anyone raised a different idea, he just shut it down and sort of proclaimed what we were going to do. And he had a team that was brilliant. But what he did by having this approach over time is he shut down the engagement. And no one raised ideas. No one bothered to throw something out that might add value because it wasn't appreciated and valued. And so what you did is you were paying all this money and salaries and compensation and benefits to people, but you weren't getting the benefit of what they brought to the table. And so I think it's really important that you learn to listen. It also helps you when there are disagreements and conflict, resolve it. When you understand where the other person's perspective is coming from, that's when you start having a dialogue and you can come to a creative solution. If you're not listening, you're standing still. Only through listening are you going to be able to move forward. You know, to be a manager and a leader, you have to want it. And I have seen, because if you don't, you're ineffective and it hurts organizations. It will kill the team. And I've seen so many people who were awful managers have such an adverse impact on an organization. But the second thing you see is organizations selecting managers and leaders based on technical skills. So you're the best IT person on some issues. So they're like, we're going to promote you to manage all the people who do this. Well, that might be great. You might know technically how to get things done and how to think about solving technology problems, but you don't know how to manage and lead a team. And half your team is in some other country, and you don't know cultural acumen or how to communicate with them. And so when you put people in place and you promote them for the technical skills without giving them support to develop the managerial and leadership skills, you're actually setting them up for failure. Not just them, but that organization that they're a part of.